Looking for car shows? Then look no further than FLAcarshows.com. On your computer or on your mobile device, FLAcarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLAcarshows.com.
I saw a picture of a car that looked like this. It was 63 Ford, but it was very similar. So that was my inspiration for this one. And I put the straight front axle and all that. So then I got second place in the Revell Pack Truck contest in the store window, Schwartz's department store on Broadway in Newburgh back in 1960. Wow. 64.
How'd you get started in modeling?
I remember getting birthday presents, and I got a kid. I remember I built an airplane, cabin cruiser, this boat, a dinosaur skeleton, Tyrannosaurus Rex or something. I don't know if I ever finished that. What happened was the magazine that we got, there was an ad in there for the Revell custom car kits, and they had fins and scoops and spotlights and chrome things all over them. And I just stared at those cars. I thought that was the coolest thing. And I went out and I got the Ford kit, and that was the first model car that I remember building. Was a 56 Ford convertible. I have one here. The one I built as a kid is long gone. It was a glue bomb. It was horrible. Those kits were fairly difficult to build, but for a kid, they were pretty tough. A couple years later, I came across my first AMT kit. I bought a 59 Corvette. So I remember standing in the store and looking at that AMT 1959 box. And on the top of the box, there's this custom car. This guy sitting in it, and he's got the scoops and the skirts and the flames and stuff all over it. And it was the coolest illustration, which brought your eye to it. But on the end of the box, there's a little sticker that says Corvette. And I thought to myself, if I buy this, what's in the box? Am I going to get that cool custom car, or am I going to get a Corvette? I kind of figured it out. But when you're 10 years old, these things go through your mind. But that hooked me. The one-piece body, you did your custom work, and what are you going to do? A few decals, screw it together. You had it done by dinner time. 60s were all the great cars. And now I love building custom stuff. I build a little bit of everything. I'm cursed with not having a favorite car nor a favorite subject matter, so I got to have everything. It's a problem. My Pontiac, there's going to be a replica stock, basically. It's going to be a commercial vehicle.
Set the Wayback Machine.
Yes, sir, Mr. Peabody.
Hey, sports fans, Peter Brock here from BRE Racing and Aerovault Trailers. Listen to Nostalgic Radio and Cars, the best automobile show in the Southeast.
Okay, listeners, welcome. You're tuned into Nostalgic Radio and Cars, and I'm your show host, Robert. Right on your computers and Google, TanTalk1340.com, and you can see us live here in the studios in downtown Clearwater. Don't forget to check out our website, GulfstreamMotorsports.com, where you can find out all about us, and Google NostalgicRadioandCars.com, and you can pick up all of our 600 and a whole bunch more shows. Good evening, Bobby. How you doing?
Hey, good to see you again after our much appreciated discussion on the Bill Cochran show.
Oh, yeah. Well, big shout out to our good friend Bill Cochran on the Only in American show, which airs just before Nostalgic Radio and Cars on Tuesday between 6 and 7, and we are between 7 and 8.
That's a good 2 hours of listening for you internal combustion engine fans.
Yeah, ICE. Internal C combustion engines E, right? Okay. So anyway, on that note, electric cars. Well, we talked a little bit on that for a second.
Happy post-Turkey Day.
Oh, yeah. Happy post-Thanksgiving to everybody. But so on electric cars, jury's still out. I think it should be, you should be able to buy what you want and drive what you want. It's real simple. It's a free market. But at any rate, on that note, speaking of cars, we will be talking about cars today. But today, we're going to talk about itty-bitty little tiny cars. Yeah, not little itty-bitty micro cars. We're going to be talking about model kit cars. We got a very special guest coming on the show. If you caught the opening segment that I played, it was about a guy that was a model builder. And in the 50s and 60s, 70s even, probably through the 80s, a lot of us guys, we weren't into sports or anything like that. Obviously we were into bicycles, skateboards, and plastic model kits and slot cars and go-karts and things of that nature. But it starts with a toy car. Right, Bobby?
It does, and grows from there.
And it goes from there. Yeah. Well, your first toy car was a '68 Shelby Fastback. Remember that? We still have that too. That was your very first gift. I'm not sure how old you were, but I was trying to get you to kind of say, okay, this is a motor, these are wheels, this is a steering wheel, this is a door, this is a hood, this is a Shelby. In fact, I'm not sure, but I think maybe you said Shelby before you said Daddy. So on that note, I think what we're going to do is I'll give a little update on some of the events that are coming up this weekend. This weekend, starting on Friday, check out Gasparilla Concourse. That's our friends over there, Brando and Joanne Pistorius. They're doing the second Gasparilla Concourse, which will take place in Luz. But go check out Gasparilla-Concourse.com. It's a lot of fun. In fact, they're doing a drive-through with some of these classic cars through downtown Safety Harbor. I believe it's on Saturday between 2 and 3. Definitely want to check that out. And next weekend, if you're down in South Florida on the East Coast, the Gold Coast, whatever they call it, the Palm Beach Concourse with our friend Sydney Vallon. So we're going to have Sydney on next week. And we might have Joanne and Brando on and just talk a little bit about some of the highlights that took place. And we will join in on the conversation. So on that note, Bobby's going to go to roll a song and then a commercial. And then we're going to get a special guest or the other way around, either which way you want to do it. And we'll have a special guest on the show. And we're going to have a really, really interesting story. Oh, speaking of which, how about a little wipeout by the Zephyrhills? And we had Bob on our show, one of the founding members of the Zephyrhills. Hey, you tune into Nostalgic Radio Car Show. Touch dial. We'll be right back.
Looking for car shows? Then look no further than FLACarshows.com. On your computer or on your mobile device, FLACarshows.com is a comprehensive list of automotive events, plus videos and news articles. Whether you're looking for car shows, cruise-ins, meetups, automotive festivals, cars and coffees, or anything else relating to an internal combustion engine, then this is a site for you. Check it out online or on your phone at FLACarshows.com.
You may be owed some money. After 911 and 411, call 541. That's 727-541-1741. Call Gulfstream Motorsports for a diminished value report. Due to my 28 years experience in the auto salvage business, I'm very good with wrecks. So if your car's been involved in a wreck, call me for a diminished value report. Call 727-541-1741. You may be owed some money for the lost value of your repaired vehicle. And visit us at GulfstreamMotorsports.com.
Okay, we're back. Now, that wasn't the sound of a model car kit, but that was the sound of a dragster going down the road. So Bobby's going to go ahead and get our guest on the phone here in a few minutes. We're calling all the way out west. Yes, all the way out, I think, to Utah, if I remember correctly. Anyway, and so we have a real interesting show tonight. But let me talk a little bit about the Gasparilla Concourse again. Okay, so Concourse... This is started out last year as the first year out of the box, and it's really cool. It's kind of like when I used to go to Amelia back in the early 90s, and you watch, and I used to go to Pebble, okay, but Pebble's been around for probably 25, 30 years already at that point in time. I think they're 50 years, long time. because I think it was in the late 50s when they started it. So so we're going 60 years almost, something like that. But at any rate, and Pebble was, like I said, was established. Amelia, when you see how Amelia evolved from 1990s, I think 7 was the first year I went there, to where it was just last year, it's just absolutely incredible. Bill Warner did an amazing job. Well, the Pastoruses basically have taken the best from Pebble Beach and from Amelia, and basically brought that to us right here in the Tampa Bay area and tied it in with the Gasparilla theme a little bit, because I guess that's coming up soon, right? The Gasparilla thingy, whatever that is. And they've done a very, very good job with the show. I mean, last year was really good out of the box, and this year it even is going to be better. Like I said, where they're doing the Concours d'Elegance, which is kind of like a drive, which they do in Pebble, and they do that as well with all the cars that are going to be in the show. Some of the featured cars will show up downtown. So if you can't make it to the concourse, you can actually show up downtown Safety Harbor, go to GasparillaConcourse.com, and the cars will be down there so you can see these amazing cars. I mean, these are cars that sometimes you will only see them in magazines, or you will only see them in a show like this. So pretty spectacular event. So I'm kind of thrilled to go through that. We have our guest on the line, Bobby?
Yes, we're doing a song for him.
And we got a song for him. Okay, we'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Let's see what we got tuned up here. What we got queued up here?
Surfer Joe.
Oh, good old Surfer Joe. Again, by the Safaris. Okay. Hey, you're tuned into Nostalgic Radio Cars. We're going to go into a little surf music, and then we're going to go into a little nostalgia. We'll be right back.
Down in Doheny, where the surfers all go, there's a big bleached blondie named Surfer Joe. He's got a green surfboard with a woody to match, and when he's riding the freeways, man, is he hard to catch. Surfer Joe, now look at him go. Surfer Joe, go man go. Surfer Joe. Saw him one day flying down the road with 26 surfboards and a 100-pound load. I knew where he was heading, trying to reach the playground of the surfers, Doheny Beach. Surfer Joe, now.
Okay, we're back, and it's time to introduce our guest. But before I do that, Bobby just informed me that in the old days, if you played 2 songs back to back by the same group, it was called what? Twin spin.
The twin spin.
The twin spin. Okay. Well, I'm sure our guest is familiar with that term because he was around back in the day. I'm delighted to welcome to the show this evening the legendary model car designer, but not only model cars, he did real cars and some amazing stuff over the years. I'm delighted to welcome to the show this evening, Tom Daniels. Tom, how are you?
Hey, Robert, how's it going?
Pretty good. So you're way out west. Are you up in the Highlands in Utah, or are you kind of like down in the ground someplace in the plains? In the plains, as they say.
I'm in southern Utah, and this is 5,000 feet elevation here. It's high desert.
High desert. That was the term I was looking for, So, but okay. So, Tom, why don't you give us a little background about yourself for our listeners? Obviously, you and I have talked about this, but I think hearing it straight from the horse's mouth is always best.
Do you want the whole story?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can talk about how you let's just talk about how you got interested in cars, okay, and then drawing.
Well, right. Actually, yeah. Basically, I'm getting the feedback here. Anyway, I was a child of the Depression era, right in the middle of the Depression, when I was a toddler and a young boy, and at that time, the world fascinated me. All the things around me that were moving, trucks and cars and steam locomotives and steam shovels and all kinds of things. And that ultimately played a role in later years, much later years, when I got a chance to design model car kits for Monogram models back in Illinois at the time. So that kind of led to that. I've always had artistic ability from a fairly young age And in fact, I was an art major in high school, and then I went on to the Art Center School in West Los Angeles to become an industrial designer finally. And from there, I was hired by General Motors, and there's a lot of things that happened in between, but that's basically what happened.
Well, now it's interesting because you were at the Art Center of Design in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of notable people who went there. Wayne Cherry went there, Larry Shinoda went there. I think our good friend, mutual friend, Peter Brock was there, obviously. And weren't you there right about the same time some of those guys were?
Right. Yeah. Actually, I was lucky, like they were, that I had Sterling McMahon as my first transportation design instructor, and Mac and I became great friends over the years, like he was, for most of those guys too. But yeah, the original Art Center, now it's called the Art Center College of Design, and it's in Pasadena. But I was lucky enough to be at the original campus, which was a former girls' school out in the rich area of West Hollywood. But it was 4 years of a tough grind, and fortunately I made it through barely. And like I said, I think I mentioned that in the senior year, Chuck Jordan came out from General Motors. Chuck at that time was the chief designer in the Cadillac studio, and he came out with Milo McNaughton, who was the director of personnel at the Tech Center. And I was lucky. Actually, when I started at Art Center, there was like little over 80 students. And when we graduated, there were 13 of us left. 5 of us got jobs. And I was one of the lucky ones that went to GM, which I wanted to do from the get-go. And a few of the guys went to Ford. But anyway, it was a dream come true.
What was it like working with Struthers is it McMinn? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yeah, Strother McMinn, MacMinn. Mac was... he was not easy.
Well, now, didn't he work for Didn't he work for one of the big three before he went off back teaching at the Art Center?
Yes, he did. And at the time, the main guy was also George Jurgensen was also formerly. I think Jurgensen was back at Ford, but anyway, yeah, there was also, I was very lucky in my junior year there, I think it was, Bob Cataray took a hiatus from styling. Bob Cataray was the assistant chief designer in Chevrolet. He designed the classic 57 Chevy Bel Air and the 59. Anyway, he came out for a year of instruction, and we just hit it off, right off the bat. It was great to have his help in formulating my little mind. And when I went back to styling, we became big. We're pretty close friends back there also.
Interesting.
So it was an interesting time for sure.
Okay, so when you got hired by General Motors, now Chuck Jordan is also credited with designing, I believe, also the stylish Buick Riviera, but I'm not sure. I think it was a 67 or 68 model was his, because it was tied in with the Cadillac Eldorado, very similar, and the Olds Tornado. So I think he was involved with those. But you ended up going to truck styling, correct?
Right. Yeah. By the way, the Tornado was designed by another classmate, Dave North. I think that was his name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think Chuck had anything to do with that. But anyway, yeah, Chuck, when he saw my portfolio at Art Center, I had always been I was interested in, heavy machinery and trucks and whatever. So I had some designs in my portfolio, and Chuck took notice of those. And he was a heavy equipment guy himself. He designed the Aero Train for General Motors, and he had some really wild, really heavy-duty Euclid off-road vehicles. But anyway, yeah, they didn't put me in the advanced truck studio right away. I went to where all Tyro designers go at GM Styling then. It was called preliminary design, which it was called the playpen, actually.
Oh, really?
And what happened there was that everybody was in there, kind of had to come up with some kind of a project, and which I did, which was a series of vehicles that would for touring the GM Tech grounds. I know when I came in there that a lot of people came through there that wanted to go through, like sightseeing at Disneyland, basically. But they were just driven around in cars, and I thought, well, it'd be really cool to have something automated where they just got in these they're like two-piece little bubble cars with electronic track. It would just go around, kind of like Disneyland.
Uh-huh.
And then also a larger vehicle, a turbine-powered bus, more or less, for when they had a bunch of people came in. And anyway, by the time that got down to the paint shop and the models of those to get painted, and Bill Mitchell was down there then, and he took a look at that bus model and at me, and then right away I was transferred into Advanced Truck Studio, which was great. So I was only in the playpen for a couple, 3 months. The deal was, if you didn't have something by 6 months' time, then you were let go, basically. So that was a fun time for sure. The Advanced Truck Studio was a walled-off petition in the southwest corner of the Chevrolet GMC truck studio. So they were working on the production items when we were in this little walled-off thing where we were working on advanced concepts and other than trucks even. Right off the bat, I was sent over to Chicago to tour the electromotive plant there, because they were talking about some new designs for commuter diesel-powered commuter trains. So it was a great time. I had all kind of stuff I was working on there.
When you were back in the playpen, would you say you were in there with a lot of talent, for lack of a better description? I mean, a lot of guys that were talented and gifted like yourself?
Yeah, again, there were several of my Art Center classmates. Dave North was one of them. Tom Bazzini was in there. There were some for sure talented guys, and they went on to do their own trip.
Was there anybody in there that didn't make it in the playpen but went on to something bigger, better than you can recall?
Yeah, if there was, I didn't know about it.
Oh, okay. Well, you always want to root for the underdog too a little bit, So. But anyway, all right. So then now you're at GM. So how long were you there?
I was there until my high school sweetheart said, "I'm out of here."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, we were both, she was this, what can I say, from Southern California, but Detroit, Michigan was another world, let me tell you.
Well, let me ask, wasn't there something about, didn't you, because you were in the military reserve, did you have to get in, wasn't there something there where you had to go do something with the military there for a short period of time, which took you out of General Motors?
Right. What happened was about the time, when I was in high school, and my art teacher knew that I liked design cars, and he set up a field trip for me to go to the art center.
Right.
In my junior year. So I spent my whole senior year at Montebello High School and in California, Southern California, putting together a portfolio to present to them, which they accepted.
Okay.
Oddly enough, I mean, normally you have to have at least some years at junior college to get in, but I was accepted. And about that time, as I was graduating in this 54, 55 class from high school, the Korean War was going on, and everybody was getting drafted. And I didn't want to go to Korea and be a grunt in the mud.
Okay.
And I liked airplanes, so I joined the Naval Air Reserve, basically, so that I could go to college. And when you do that, there's one weekend a month you do your duty at the reserve where I was stationed at Los Alamitos Naval Air Station, and then when I moved to Detroit, then I was at the Grosse Ile, NAS Grosse Ile there in the Detroit River. And then when my wife decided to leave Detroit, and she was my little baby boy, and then she was also pregnant with my second son. What happened was I took a leave of absence from GM, which they weren't too happy about, to go back to California to try to, reason with her, because it was a dream job. I mean, I loved it there. And about the time I got back, that was when the Cuban Missile Crisis started. And I was called active duty for 11 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we're talking the Cuban Missile Crisis thing here now, right? And all that stuff.
That's
the bad pigs?
1962, right?
Okay.
And when I was released from that, and when we were discharged, and I was done with the reserve, a couple of my friends that I had at Art Center, both of them were actually at they got work at the Apollo Moon Project in Downey, California for North American Aviation, and they called me and said, "Hey, Tom, this is great." And so I went over and applied for design engineer job on the Apollo project, and I got hired there. And it wasn't too long after that Chuck Jordan came out. He made a special trip out to California to look me up to try to get me to come back to Seiling. And he came out of the house. He drove up in it was a red GTO convertible.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, right. And he made his pitch, and Diane said, "Well, hey, you can go, but I'm staying." And by that time, I also had a little baby daughter. So 3 kids, and it wasn't in the cards. I had to just say, "I'm sorry, Chuck, I can't go back," which is unfortunate. But anyway, the Apollo thing was interesting also.
So what did you do?
Several years.
What'd you do on that project? What was your task?
Yeah, initially I was with the group called Ground Equipment.
Uh-huh.
And that had to do with the recovery of the capsule, and there was a lot of technical stuff. At the time, I wasn't sure it was ever going to work, but at the time they weren't sure whether they're going to bring the capsule back on the ground or on water. And they had behind the Downey plant in Downey, California there, which, by the way, that plant was during World War II. That's where they built B-24 Liberators. It was owned by Consolidated Aircraft then. And my mom she wasn't a Rosie the Riveter, but she was a secretary there. So it was an old aircraft-oriented plant to begin with. But what they did was they built a big, huge, like a swimming pool out in some of the land behind the plant there, and a big gantry. And what they did was they had a Apollo capsule there that they would swing up way up in the air and then let it swing down and then cut it loose. And when it hit, they had also hit the ground once. They ground tested it, and that didn't work. I mean, the Apollo guys would have been toast. So then they used the big water pool, and that worked. So that's the way that they, from then on, all these recoveries have been in underwater. And then I went from there. I went into the simulation and evaluation group, and that was actually working on the capsule, the 3-man capsule itself. And I designed, a whole, it's kind of hard to describe it. It was interesting. I mean, it wasn't designing vehicles, but it was design work.
So what did you design? The configuration of the capsule?
No, it had nothing to do with the capsule itself. There was a lot of the test equipment.
Okay.
I mean, back then there wasn't, at the time, computer-wise, it was. I mean, that was in Henry Ford days almost. They weren't sure whether they were going to go with what form of computer, analogous or digital. And I thought they were going to go with analogous, but it went the other way. Everything was done by ones and zeros. But the test equipment. Jimmy, I wish I could show you images. It'd be a lot easier. But anyway, that was just one segment. On the side there, I was doing, along with my two art center classmates, we put together a little side business called Pacific Design Consultants, where we started doing consulting design work for various companies in Southern California. And it actually, this is a little bit jumbled here, chronologically speaking, Robert, because while I was at Art Center, I was always looking for side work. And a friend of mine put me in contact with a guy named Lynn Wineland, who was then the first editor of Rod and Custom magazine. And he was the first art director and the second editor. And through him, I started doing drawings off the sketch pad for Rod and Custom magazine.
Oh, wow.
That was before I graduated. And that opened up all kinds of things. I mean, I was doing the sketch pad for over a decade, way over. Plus all the other magazines a piece, and Hot Rod, Motor Trend, Sports Car Graphic, Guns and Ammo. I did work for all of them. And also Rod and Custom Models magazine. And what happened there was that Roger Harney and Bob Reeder at Monogram Models, Bob Reeder was one of the original owners, spotted my work, and that led to down the road to design work with Monogram, which led to the Beer Wagon model kit, which was the first one. And that opened up a whole new world for me. It was a dream job also. I mean, I didn't have to produce things to sell to a committee. It just turned me loose.
When you designed the models, what was a lot of the inspiration? Okay, so the most notable model that you built, that's for all us car model guys back in the day, and was the Red Baron, right? And
yeah, that was actually the second model. Again, my first project was they said they wanted to take a Mack truck and hot rod it. Okay. I mean, that was, and again, this comes in from my childhood when I remember the old Mack trucks with the chain drive, grinding along the streets. So, when I did the drawings for them for that, and that got into production. I mean, that just took off. That was a big time seller, also million seller. But from that, they just turned me loose, and they said, "Well, what else do you have?" Actually, the only one I really had was an idea that I'd been toying with, and that was from the bucket on the Model T, the old Model T car body. It looked like that. I don't know where this came from. At the time, the surfers were wearing German helmets, and California was a big thing. I don't know why. And for some reason, I thought, that helmet would fit on the T bucket. And so I went ahead and just created the vehicle. I actually went down to a museum in Orange County, the Tallman Mass Museum. There was a great aircraft museum, and they had a full-size Mercedes-Benz aircraft engine there, which I wanted to put in the car, except it was about 8 feet long. I mean, it was huge. So what I had to do was shrink that down, and they used a lot of the other accoutrements, machine guns and whatever. And for the name, it just so happened at that time, I can't think of the group name, but the Bloody Red Baron.
Yeah, Royal Guardsmen.
Right, the Guardsmen. And then, of course, Peanuts.
Snoopy.
the Snoopy and the Red Baron thing.
Yeah.
So the name just Red Baron. I mean, it's got to be called the Red Baron. And so that's what the name was. And that from then on, they just turned me loose. I mean, whatever I came up with, it was whether it was the iced tea or the cherry bomb and a lot of those names were from my childhood again.
So when you were younger, and I'm going to say model car building kind of became popular. I'm going to say it actually, people were messing around with cars, but didn't it kind of somewhat evolve from like wooden car models and then eventually went to plastic? So that was sometime there's a transition in the 50s. Were you part of that? Did you do any of that? Or was that, so in other words, how did you get involved in the model building aspect of it? So did you kind of fully understand, okay, these models and what kids build and how to market and design what kids would build?
Well, the wooden and actually cardboard during that World War II, everything was restricted.
Okay.
So the plastic market didn't actually happen until after World War II, and they were pretty crude, really.
Right.
But with Monogram, they actually started with wooden models, wooden ship models, and wooden airplanes, and all that good stuff. But so as far as the designing, I mean, as a designer, as a transportation designer, I mean, the nomenclature, whether the chassis, the motor, whatever all the parts and pieces are. I mean, I had a free rein to design those if they were something out of my mind. And of course, for motors, we use, V8s or straight sixes or whatever. And Monogram had separate tooling for all those, so I didn't have to actually design a motor per se. Although on some of them, like the Tarantula, the dragster, I did design the upper portions of it with the dual air. I don't want to say compressors, but the blown motors.
Okay, superchargers.
Yeah, superchargers, right. And then some of them I used like a straight. Well, on the Red Baron there, that it was a straight 8, and kind of had to shrink that down, like I said, for the model.
So back in the day when you were to get, let's say, inspiration for some of these models, and you're in Southern California, so you're around the hot rod scene. Were you a hot rodder? Did you have cars back in the day too? And then by going to car shows, was that kind of an inspiration as well to some of the crazy stuff that you did?
Not really.
No?
I mean, my family was what you would call poor.
No. I'm talking about when things started going better for you in the mid '60s. Before when you were designing models, were you kind of in the cars at that point?
Well, I was always into cars. I mean, I had my original one was a fat-fendered 41 Ford Business Coupe.
Oh, okay.
That I tinkered with a little bit, and then I had a 46 Ford sedan that I drove. That I kept for a long time. That I drove to Art Center for a while. And it had, the big thing then was what's called raking out. I mean, there was two with the tail draggers, or the other one was small tires in front and big tires in the rear from the dragsters.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I did with the 46. I even put 6-inch shackles on the back of it, and tractor tires on it.
Oh man!
and I painted, and I hand painted white wall. Back then, white wall tires were, nobody gets afford those, but they had something called varsity paint. So I painted the white wall tires, and they had cutouts off of the exhaust manifold, and boy, was that loud. And they painted Coral Beach Coral. It was really cool. It was a neat car. And then I had a 50 Merc that had some customizing on it, but nothing radical. I mean, I didn't have a 32 Ford with a cam in it or anything like that. But later on, as I did the first fun cars I had after things went well with Monogram sales. I got a '67 Corvette. Fastback split window that I had blueprinted. It had a 427.
Oh wow!
And that was a rocket. And then they did, after I got the 70 Corvette that they made the model kit out of, the California Street Vet, they called it, which is right now, it's in restoration. Hopefully we're going to have it painted here pretty soon. And, yeah, there were other cars I had. I had a little tiny Fiat Abarth Zagato body race car for a while. That was fun.
Ooh, that's interesting. So you have some of the cars from back in the day then?
Yeah, I did. They weren't, again, they weren't really hot rods. They were more
road cars, basically.
Yeah, road cars with some, with tweaks here and there.
Okay. Now, when you, in those days, okay, so when you had those cars, did you then go to car shows, and just check out the scene? And was any of that an inspiration for some of the models that you created?
Not really. As far as car shows at Art Center, they had the Autorama in Hollywood, and we'd go to that from classes from when they had Autorama shows, and GM, Ford, whoever was out there, showing all their radical show cars there. That was neat. But there weren't any that I remember really the car shows like we see today.
Okay.
The hot rod thing had started prior to World War II, and then after the guys that made it back, they picked up again, and then that's when the hot rod industry really took off in Southern California and other places. But from Edelbrock and all the different manufacturers that were making goodies to hop up your cars. But it's nothing like today. I mean, that was still back in the dark ages, really.
All right, so let me ask you this. So now you're working for Monogram. You designed some pretty wild kits. You're successful. Monogram is successful. In fact, they credit a lot of their success as a result of a lot of the designs that you created for their market.
Yeah, that's true. They took a really hit before I came on board. And I never did actually. I wasn't an employee. I was a consultant designer.
Okay.
So I was working from my home in Southern California, and I would make a couple of trips back there to Morton Grove, Illinois, each year. And back then, again, there was no computers. I mean, I couldn't send them, digital files of drawings. What I had to do was, when I got drawings done, I would pack them up and I would head out to LAX. I don't know if you're familiar with California at all, are you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I grew up in Marin County, so yeah, I'm a native.
Oh, okay. All right. Right. Yeah, anyway, so I went from out in Walnut, California, out towards Pomona.
Yeah.
I would head over there 3 a.m. with a bundle of stuff for one of their red-eye flights back to Monogram, back east. And there would somebody be there to pick them up, and then they'd go right into the Monogram shop, and where they had some fantastic model builders building scratch built stuff. The scratch built models of some of my stuff, it blew me away what these guys could do. And they had a couple of really good engineers that could add when I would draw all the parts and pieces that were needed, like for the Red Baron, for the radius rods, whatever it was. And a guy named Ken Merker, I think he's not with us anymore, but he was a really hep engineer, and he would add just the couple of degrees wherever he needed it for able to pull the parts out of the molds. But I was really lucky. I had some people at Monogram. They were just marvelous to work with. That we didn't have any problems at all.
Did you ever go to any of the model? I mean, they always had like model car shows. Sometimes they had model conventions because that was the big thing back in the 70s and 80s, particularly in the 60s as well. Did you ever go to any of those events and check out some of the other models, including some of the stuff that you had built or designed, and see the finished product out there that were built by the average guy like me?
I did some, yeah, and I was actually invited to judge a lot of them.
Okay.
Which sometimes it got to be a hassle, but yeah, I did some of that when it was local, and of course over the years, people wanted me to attend something that's hard to do sometimes, but yeah, they were. In fact, right now, the nice thing about this digital age is that all the time I get incoming emails from car shows that are, the Tom Daniel theme type of shows, and some of the work just blows me away that they're doing. And I try to, some of these I'll send, T-shirts or something to the winners.
Oh wow, cool.
So that's. Yeah, it's actually it's very, very at this late game. I mean, in a couple of 3-4 days, I'm going to be 86.
Oh,
I mean, I can't believe it. But I get so many nice emails from people that back then your age who were building models, and they're getting back into building models now, which is great, and building models with their grandkids and Tom Daniel stuff. So it's. I mean, back then when I did all that, who knew? I was having fun for stuff that I like to do. I had no idea whether they'd sell or not. That was just.
I got an inquiry here. Was the Wolfman Dragster one of your designs?
Yeah, the Wolfman Jack was when I was going to school at Huntington Park to the junior high and then the Huntington Park High School before I moved to Montebello. Yeah, Wolfman Jack was on the radio there. He was at Vernon and Central. It was where he and he was Wolfman Jack was in that what was that movie American Graffiti or whatever it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, no, the question was, did there was a Wolfman Dragster model? Was that one of your designs?
No.
Okay.
No, I have no idea what that was. No, for my things, there's quite a few YouTube segments with TD things, Tom Daniel things. Max Conkey down in Florida. He's down in Florida. I don't know if you know Max.
No, I don't.
Max Models. Yeah, he's a pilot for JetBlue. But he's a huge model maker and builder of mostly airplanes. But he put together a great kind of a chronology of on me. I think it's called Tom Daniel Master Designer.
Okay.
And then of course Stacy, our friend Stacy.
Stacy David from Gears TV. Yep.
Right. Yeah, and he's just starting to release segments of what will ultimately be a full documentary. And he's doing this again. They were up here with a crew last year for 3 days, and just took tons and tons of film and still shots. And so that, like you said, those will be popping up here. And then there was a Phil Davis did the man behind the models was a video back in the late 80s. It was the 80s. I'm getting lost on my time here. Anyway, there's quite a bit of things on there now. I see, and what's happening now is with the re-releases of my things through Atlantis Models, which is in New York.
Uh-huh.
Monogram's gone. Unfortunately, their parent company got pulled into bankruptcy, and they took down Monogram Models with them. And the tooling is scattered. A lot of it's in Europe, but there's the American company Atlantis has a good selection of mine, and they're coming out with them regularly. And then my son Kelly Thomas Daniel is doing the box art now, because my hand and my eyes aren't what they were when I used to do those box art. But anyway, there's people on YouTube now that are doing build a Tom Daniel, Son of Troublemaker, or whatever, or the Groovy Grader, or the Unreal Roller, or a bunch, school bus, whatever. So there's a lot out there, and it's fun.
It's keeping the legend alive, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, who knew? I mean, this is a half century, and this stuff is still, different generations are responding to this, and the older guys, again, like to get some of their childhood back.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that when they were, I get so many, like I said, so many emails that they remember exactly where they were when they bought the iced tea.
Super.
And it's really satisfying. I mean, it's humbling for sure.
Tom,
But
Tom, we are up against the clock. So if people want to find out more about you, how do they go about doing that?
Well, the easiest way is from our website. It's tomdaniel.com. As long as they don't put an S on the end of my name. Everybody does that. Tom Daniels. But if they just go to tomdaniel.com, they can see all the kits and other things like Gary Gablitz, my good buddy, and a lot of other things on there. So.
Well, that sounds good. That's good. Well, we will certainly keep you in the loop here every once in a while, see what's going on. And again, Tom, I want to thank you very much for hanging out with us here at Nostalgic Radio and Cars. Surely was a treat. Me being a model car guy, I built a number of your models from Monogram, also AMT, Revell, MPC, IMC, all those. I mean, unfortunately, they're not here again, but, some of them are. But the models are still here, and they're being reissued. And we're glad you're still alive and well and healthy and a legend that's there to keep it going. And, again, we want to thank you for coming on our show this evening.
Robert, thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank my special guest, Tom Daniel. I said it right, single Tom Daniel, legendary, I was a car designer, model car designer, Monogram car designer. I mean, just really cool, classic 60s, 70s stuff, 70s stuff, actually. So, in the meantime, don't forget, Gasparilla Concourses this weekend, Palm Beach Concourses next weekend, and we are here every Tuesday between 7 and 8 p.m. on the TAN Talk Radio Network between 7 and 8 p.m. Big shout out again to our friend over there, Bill, at the Only in America Minute, right, Bobby?
Only in America Minute is at 8 noon and 6 every day, and the show's at 6 on Tuesdays.
Right. And so, hey, and it's car season. There's a lot of stuff going on. And big shout out to my good buddy, Maverick Will Do It, who was a live guest on our radio show last week. In the meantime, stay safe, drive carefully, and love your family.
I found an island in your arms, country in your eyes. Arms are chainless, eyes are lined. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through, oh yeah! Rain to sea, week to week, day to day, hour to hour, day straight, deep and wide. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through to the other side. Bring on through, bring on through, bring on through, bring on through. Hey, hey, hey,
WTAN, Clearwater.
FM 106.1.
WDCF, Dade City.
FM 102.3.
WZHR, Zephyrhills.
FM 104.3.
On the Hour, sponsored by Dell Small Business.
I'm Jennifer Kuiper. In Chicago, a severe weather threat for the South. CBS News meteorologist David Parkinson says there's a tornado threat for a wide swath of Mississippi, and this storm promises to be a 1-2 punch.
The potential for 4, 5, maybe 6 inches of rain in portions of eastern Mississippi and western Alabama. That's got a flash flood watch in effect right now, because when you have that much rain in that short a period of time, you are nearly certain to get some kind of flash flooding.
A jury finds Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes guilty of seditious conspiracy for the attack on the U.S. Capitol. More from CBS's Robert Laguerre.
There are plenty of counts in which Stuart Rhodes and his co-defendants, Kelly Meggs, Kenneth Harrelson, Thomas Caldwell, and Jessica Watkins, were found not guilty, including certain cases of seditious conspiracy in 3 of those cases, as well as conspiracy to obstruct official proceeding. And so in those instances, defense attorneys really seized on the opportunity to show the jury that they didn't think that there was a plan in place to enter the Capitol and to then stop the peaceful transfer of power.
An attorney for Rhodes says they intend to appeal. A landmark same-sex marriage bill has won bipartisan Senate passage.
I'm Tom Foti, acting after the Supreme Court abortion right reversal decision and fears that it could do the same with same-sex, maybe interracial marriages. The